Greetings, welcome back. So if you're a Steelers fan, you don't have any football to watch right now. And if you're like, I forgot, it's okay, so did the Steelers. So we're going to get into some more news of the day here. We're going to start off with New Jersey signing Jesper Bratt, 2 years, $5.5 million contract, $2.75 million a year. And so for Jesper Bratt, that's a good return. Now, of course, with quarantine process, testing processes, and everything else, he's going to join the list of guys. There's going to be a lot of guys who miss opening night. Just putting it that way. Granlund is going to miss opening night as an example, because of the process of coming in and all that wonderful stuff. So we'll see when Bratt gets into the lineup. But at least that's done for the Devils. As the news kind of hanging over their heads, so at least that's finished. Now, I want to say that I didn't jinx players by saying I really hope these 31 guys have healthy seasons. I'm starting to think I did. First, Crawford retired. So, nope. Now, Casey Zuzikis, injured at practice today. He may miss the start of the season. We're not sure what his status is, because of course not. And if you're a Vegas fan, Alex Tuck is day-to-day, and he may miss the opener. So, it's the thing with picking guys who are known for getting injured. Odds are they're probably going to get injured or miss time or retire, I guess. Sure. So Tuck being out does open up an opportunity for somebody else for Vegas. Vegas has a ton of depth. I'm not overly concerned if I'm Vegas, but if you're Alex Tuck, it's another shot. Where if Vegas ends up, I've said this before, I said this in the video the other day, if Vegas ends up after this season being in another bind with their salary cap situation, if Tuck keeps missing time, he's easier to offload because you can look at your record and say, hey, we do well without him in the lineup. Here's how much money he's costing us. We might be better off trading that contract. Sort of like what Vegas did when they got rid of Eric Howla. It was along that same line of Howla getting hurt, looking at his contract and saying, well, we're better off to save that money. So hopefully he doesn't miss very much time. Ben Hutton has been signed to a professional tryout with the Ducks. So Boston does not end up getting Hutton. Boston, I think Boston's done. All indications seem to be Boston's done. And for Hutton, again, if you're a Ducks fan and you haven't seen much of Hutton, he can play a number 6 role. He can play on the bottom 2. As long as he's not overplayed, he can be useful. He's not a top 4 defenseman by any stretch, but he can be a useful piece. And so I would expect him to get officially signed by the Ducks. He may end up on their taxi squad. That may be a situation he ends up in, or he may be the number 7 defenseman. But he's found a home now with the Ducks. And I want to throw this in here because I know people are going to want me to talk about them. Yes, every team won their scrimmage game. And if they haven't played, your team's going to win. Scrimmage games are wonderful. If we could have a season of just scrimmage games, every team would be undefeated. And every team would be winless, depending on how you look at it, because they're playing against themselves. And some of these games have got kind of testy. Of course, Gaudette got kind of ticked off at Tyler Mott for a slew foot. And that was after a slew foot on Howrelak, apparently, as well. So, yeah. But every team wins their scrimmages. Every team looks great in a scrimmage. They're playing against themselves. Every team looks fantastic. And you can go, yep, everything's awesome. Look at the team we've got. Right. So they will win their scrimmage games. Again, spoiler alert, right? You mean the Leafs won the game against the Leafs? Yes, they did. The Canucks beat the Canucks? They absolutely did. That's somebody that the Canucks and the Leafs are able to, they can beat themselves. And come playoff time, I've seen the Canucks beat themselves going back, almost like 40 years now. So they have been able to do that at times. Boston news. Tuukka Rask will start the opener. That's like the worst kept secret in the world. The plan is that over the starting games against New Jersey and the Islanders on the road to get Halak, they're saying 1 start. So Rask may play a lot this year. Or it may be that they're giving him the lion's share of starts to start the season, and then we'll see more of a trade-off down the road. But yeah, so Rask starts the opener. Please feel free to seem shocked in the comment section. One surprise right now is that it looks like with Florida, Keith Yandle is on the second unit. So right now with what we're seeing like the top units for each team. This is the roster that's going to play. And then you have your second unit, which is the players who are going to end up on the taxi squad or are going to end up being demoted to the minors. Yandle's been on that second squad for Florida. Now, it's possible that Yandle's still going to play, but Yandle has an 866 game streak. He has not missed a game out of the last 866. He may miss a game it is possible that the Florida Panthers healthy scratch him at some point. I can't see it. I mean, just looking at it, just looking at that record, I think, well, I can't see them sitting him out. And if they're looking at sitting him out, wouldn't they make him available for trade? Wouldn't Bill Zito be working the phones and say, look, we're happy with what we've got in camp without Yandle in the lineup. Is anybody interested in Yandle? So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, that streak may very well be in jeopardy. There's been a lot of talk about Buffalo's lines. Skinner's moved down the lines throughout camp, and there's been switching guys around. Ralph Krueger wants people to stop reading into it. He's basically saying, it's training camp. I'm testing it out. I'm seeing what works and what doesn't, kind of thing, and don't read too much into it. Which, of course, the media will, fans will. I don't know that players won't either. That's the thing. If you're moving Skinner down to the fourth line, I don't know that Skinner's not going to look at that and say, am I getting a kick in the backside here? And again, as a fan, you might appreciate seeing players who are making big money get kind of a kick for maybe not being at the top of their game in training camp, maybe coming in. And again, Kruger's saying don't read too much into it, but it's hard not to, right? Especially if you move one player down the lineup and another player up, and that line really clicks. Again, it's in practice and it's in a scrimmage game, right? So it's only against yourselves, but it can be tough not to look at that and say, hey, we could go with this combination, this might work. And it might make it worse for a player who's on an expensive contract and gets busted down the lineup. Speaking of signings from today, going back to Hutton getting a PTO and Bratt getting a signing, Frederick Clason's been signed by the San Jose Sharks to a 1-year, 2-way deal. I want to throw in here, 2-way deal means you make a different amount of money at the NHL level than you do at the AHL or on the taxi squad. On the taxi squad, they make their minor league money. It does not mean that you are waivers exempt. I've had this discussion over the years. I'll throw this in again here. A 2-way contract has nothing to do with waivers. A 2-way contract just means you make less money in the AHL than you do in the NHL. It does not mean that contract is waivers exempt in any way. So Clason could very well, and probably does, I would think, get put on waivers and probably thrown on the taxi squad for the San Jose Sharks, unless they feel he should be in the that number 7 spot or a healthy scratch for the team. Going to be interesting to see how these rosters go this year. I'm really interested to see who makes it and who doesn't, and doing video on, say, Tuesday where we know what the rosters are going to look like and go through, like, who's a surprise that made it and who's a surprise that didn't. This is not really a surprise, but the Oilers have released Ryan Stanton from his tryout, so not all professional tryouts work for Stanton. He came in, he gave it an effort, and the Oilers have said, thanks for your time, and they've opted to go in another direction. So we will see players getting that as well, where they come in on a tryout and then they get released, and it happens. It's part of the game. It has to be somewhat frustrating for players, but odds are you probably have a good idea what your chances are during camp. You probably have a good idea of whether or not you're going to make it. So, yeah. Carolina news and looking at lineups. This one kind of surprises me that they've had Nino Niederreiter playing with Aho and Teravainen. Yeah. Niederreiter, his contract has been poor, and yet, while he has not performed up to that contract, when he was first traded to Carolina by Minnesota, he played well. And then this past season, the 2019-2020 season, was not a great year for him. If he can rediscover that scoring touch, if he can rediscover that edge to his game, he can be a solid top 6 option. So we'll see if he ends up starting the season there, if they switch other guys off and try to get, say, 3 scoring lines going. Be interested to see what happens with Carolina. Now, on the practice front, because, of course, Vancouver, everything's closed. It's been announced that they will practice tomorrow. So what's happening is players are, I think in this case, it was supposedly a family member may have been exposed to COVID-19. So family members exposed that's been in contact with the Canucks, you shut things down, you make sure everything's good, and then you keep going. Now, it's an imperfect system. Every professional sport in North America has gone through this, and now the NHL's in it as well, and we're just going to navigate it as the season goes along. So the Canucks are back on the ice tomorrow. The Stars are not. So what's interesting to me is that they could at least, you would think, have the practice with a certain number of players, because they had different groups practicing. So the fact that we're not seeing them on the ice at all, probably a bit problematic, but we know their season doesn't start until the 19th at the earliest. So, yeah, they won't be on the ice tomorrow. We'll see if they're on the ice Tuesday. It has to be frustrating for players right now to get themselves ready, get themselves energized for the season, and now they get to wait and see what the results are and how this all turns out. NHL.com released their top 10 best players in the NHL list for this season, and it's quite the list. So I'll go through it. Number 1, they have Connor McDavid. Number 2, they have Nathan McKinnon. And this is the duo that seems to be the most popular picks for the best players in the game. Leon Draisaitl's number 3. Artemi Panarin, I'm surprised to see him at number 4 because they've got Crosby at 5. I would still personally have Crosby ahead of Panarin, but I never had to do that because I didn't do wingers and forwards all together. I just did wingers and I did centers. So, there you go. But yeah, Crosby at 5, Pasternak's at 6. They have Kucherov at 7, Ovechkin at 8, Victor Hedman's at 9. So Hedman's the only defenseman in the top 10, and Austin Matthews is there at number 10. So that's their top 10. They've been doing the top 50 the whole way through. And there are times where I look at these lists and I think, so did they put so-and-so in this spot just because they knew the internet would get mad? Did they do this just because they thought, hey, this will get people talking? Like, I sometimes wonder that with some of their lists. And you know, lists work that way, though. But hey, there you go. There's the NHL.com's top 10, which again is another sign that we're getting into the season again. That it's here because they've run out of stuff to write about. And so they're just getting ready for the season. All the off-season stuff is done. And for me, the off-season stuff's kind of done too. I'm just, you know, we're Tuesday night, I'll be doing the first preview for the regular season for 2021. I'll be doing the first preview I have done since March 11th. So that's a long time, and it'll be nice to have that back. And of course, it'll be the updated style I'm doing for the previews, and that'll be fun to do. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And for people wondering, yes, after the game is done tonight, the Pittsburgh-Cleveland game, I will be doing like a recap of the weekend in football and discuss next week's games and just do that on the Entertainment Guy. So for people go, this is a hockey channel. Right, I do that on the Entertainment Guy, my other channel, where I have a bunch of other stuff I've been meaning to do too, but because hockey's been kind of busy with videos, I haven't had a chance to get caught up. So now we get back into that time of year where there's a bunch of Entertainment Guy stuff I want to do and it gets backed up. And then at some point I'll have to do a bunch of videos on that channel as well. And we're getting close to that. There's a couple of videos I have to do before the season starts on that channel. So if you're not already a subscriber over there, by all means, check it out. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.